Hello everyone and welcome to another video from STEM School. Now in today's video I'll explain everything you need to know about the straight line equation, and I've got plenty of exam questions so that you can see the different type of things you could get asked, okay? Now, so before I begin, please do remember to hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel. That will be amazing. Alright, so let's get started. So the equation of a straight line is this famous equation here. We have y is equal to mx plus c. Okay, so this is the equation that we need to remember. Now, when we actually look at this equation, what do we actually have? Well, what we have is the letter m first of all. We have m, which stands for the gradient, okay? Now, simply put, the gradient of a straight line is the steepness of the line, okay? Then we have the letter c. Now, the letter c is the y-intercept. Now, the y-intercept is where the line cuts the y-axis, okay? So this is y is equal to mx plus c. So you'll get equations like this. So y is equal to 2x plus 4. Or you can get, something like y is equal to, minus 3 over 2x minus 2, okay? This is a form of the straight line equation that you'll see a lot. So you have the y by itself on the left-hand side. Then we have the gradient in front of the x, and then you have the y-intercept on the end there, okay? So we can actually visualize this equation of a straight line on a graph. So what we have here is an x-y graph, okay? So this is what we'll see a lot. So we'll have x horizontally, then y vertically, okay? So then we'll have the line just like this, okay? So what you'll notice is that the letter by itself on the left hand side, well, that'll be on the y-axis, and then the letter behind the gradient, well, that'll be on the horizontal axis, okay? So you just need to get grips with it, but normally what you'll deal with is x and y's anyway, okay? Now, I've done a bit more detailed explanation on what each term is. So the y-intercept, which is c, well, that's the point where the line intersects with the y-axis, okay? So see if we had a line just like this, okay, and see if it cuts the y-axis at point 2, well then c will equal 2, okay? But if you want the coordinates of the point where the line cuts the y-axis, well, the coordinates will be 0, 2, okay? So you'll notice the c is just a y coordinate, okay? So we have x and y, okay? So similarly, you can have a line going down the way, and say if it cuts at, minus 3, well, we'll say that c is equal to minus 3, and then the coordinates will be 0, minus 3. Okie doke. Now, when it comes to the gradient, I've actually done a previous video explaining how to calculate the gradient of a straight line, so I'll link that in the description. But essentially, the gradient is the steepness of the line. So a steeper line would have a bigger number as the gradient, okay? So say if we had a line like this, okay, it's not that steep, okay? So we'll say that m is equal to half. Now if we had a line that was steeper, like this, we can say that m is equal to 3. So you'll notice a steeper line has a larger gradient, okay? So m equals half is a less steep than m is equal to 3, okay? So what you want to know what's happening is this idea. So the gradient m is equal to vertical over horizontal. So it's just like a staircase, okay? And it tells you how steep it's going. So if you look at m is equal to half, so m is equal to vertical over horizontal, which is m is equal to a half, we said in this case. So what we're saying is that we're going to go across 2 units, but then we're only going to go up 1 unit, okay? So it's not that steep, okay? Now, in this case, we have m is equal to 3. So m is equal to vertical over horizontal, which is equal to 3. And now this is the same way as writing 3 over 1 as a top-heavy fraction. So what we're saying is that we're going to go across only 1 unit, but we're going to go above. We're going to go up 3 units, okay? So it's steeper, okay? So we just need to remember that staircase idea for the gradient. Now, the next point I want to make is that if the gradient is positive, then the line slopes upwards, okay? So say if we had a line going up the way like this, well, we can say that the gradient of this line, m, is equal to 2. Okay, so any line that's sloping up the way, well, that has a positive gradient, okay? Now, alternatively, if the gradient is negative, the line slopes downwards. Okay, so we can have something like this. So we can say that m is equal to minus 3 over 2. So any line that's sloping down the way, you have a negative gradient. Alright? So, and lastly, there's a formula we need to remember on how to actually calculate the gradient of a straight line. Okay, so this is the second formula I need to remember for this topic. What this is saying is that the gradient is equal to y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. Okay, so what is y2, y1? What is x2 and x1? Well, x1 and y1 is just the x and y coordinates of the first point on the line, and then x2 and y2 is the second. Is the x and y coordinate of the second point on the line. Okay, so in order to calculate the gradient of a straight line, you need to know 2 points on the line. Okay, so we'll go over plenty of examples where we actually get to demonstrate using this formula. Okay. Alright, so let's have a go at the first type of exam question you could get, and this is a case where you need to identify the gradient and the y-intercept from the equation of the straight line that you're given in the question, okay? Now I've written the two formulas that you need to remember: the equation of a straight line, y is equal to mx plus c, and then how to calculate the gradient, m is equal to y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. Alright, so let's have a quick example here. So we have y is equal to minus 3x plus 5, okay? So you'll get a question where you have to simply identify the gradient and the y-intercept from the equation. Well, if you look up here, y is equal to mx plus c, we know that the number in front of the x is the gradient. So we can say that m is equal to minus 3, okay? So that's how you calculate the gradient. It's the number in front of the x term, for the x, okay? Then what's the y-intercept? Well, that's just the number on the end here, which is denoted by c. Okay, so c in this case will be 5. Okay, now if you're ever asked what is the coordinates of the point the line touches intersects with the y-axis, well then it'll be 0, 5. Okay, that's the full coordinate, the x coordinate and then the y coordinate. Okay, so that's quite simple, right? Now let's go on to an exam question where we need to demonstrate this. Okay. So this question is saying a straight line has the equation 2x minus 5y is equal to 20, and we want to find the coordinates of the point where this line crosses the y-axis, okay? So we're given the straight line equation here, right? So let's write that down. So 2x minus 5y is equal to 20, okay? Now this is indeed the equation of a straight line, but it's written in a form that you're not used to, okay? So we've said that the equation of a straight line is this form here, y is equal to mx plus c. So you'll get this question quite often where it's written in an odd form. What you have to do is just rearrange it so you get this form that you're used to where the y is by itself on the left hand side, okay? So let's have a go at that. So let's bring the 2x to the right hand side, so it'll be minus 5y is equal to minus 2x plus 20, okay? Now we need to divide both sides by minus 5 to get rid of it on the left hand side. So if we divide both sides by minus 5, we'll get 2/5 x. Then 20 divided by negative 5, that'll be minus 4. Okay, so there we have it. We've already figured out the equation of the straight line. You just rearrange it to the form that we're used to, okay? Now we've been asked to find the coordinates of the point where this line crosses the y-axis, okay? So the number in front of the x, well that's the gradient, so m is equal to 2/5. But we're not asked that, we're asked for the coordinates of the point where this line crosses the y-axis, so this is the bit we're looking at. So we know c is equal to minus 4, okay? That doesn't actually answer a question, we need to give it in coordinates, so it'll be 0, minus 4. Okay, so we have the x coordinate and then the y coordinate here. So this will be the final answer, okay? So just remember, just rearrange it into the form that you're used to. Y is equal to mx plus c. Alright, so let's have a go at the second type of exam question you could get, and that's the case where you're given the equation of a straight line and you need to be able to draw that on a graph, okay? So say if you get an equation like this, so say if you get y is equal to minus 3 over 2x plus 2, okay? So we need to be able to draw this, okay? So the first thing that you'll do is draw a graph and then draw a scale, okay? So you need to make sure the scale is even, and you need to make sure that the y-axis and the x-axis is labelled. So the letter by itself on the left-hand side, well, that'll be the vertical axis, and then the letter in front behind the gradient, that'll be on the horizontal axis, okay? So if we want to draw this, we want to identify the gradient and we want to identify the y-intercept, okay? So the number in front of the x, well that's the gradient, so m is equal to minus 3 over 2. And then we have C, the y-intercept is equal to 2, okay? Now, the coordinates of the point where it cuts the y-axis, well, that will be 0, 2. Okay, this is a key point, 0, 2, okay? So, what we have here is we have a point where we can start on the graph, 0, 2, and then we have the gradient. So, when you have the gradient, you can always immediately think of the staircase method, okay? The staircase method being, well, m is equal to vertical over horizontal, okay? Now, if we're saying the gradient is minus 3 over 2, what we're saying is that we're going to go across 2 units, but we're going to go down 3 units, okay? So we have a negative gradient, so that immediately implies the equation of the straight line, the line will be going down the way, okay? We have a negative gradient, and this is a staircase to work it out. Okay, so let's start off with what we know. We have the one point on the graph here, so we have 0, 2, which is this point here. So if we want to draw this, let's use the gradient staircase, okay? And so what we're going to do is we're starting here and we're going to go across 2 units, okay? So we're at 2 and then we're going to go down 3 units, okay? So we end up at minus 1, okay? So let's put a point here, okay? Let's repeat that again, okay? So we're going to go across 2 units and then down 3 units, okay? Just like the gradient, minus 3 over 2. So then we can put a point here, okay? So that's pretty much the idea. All you have to do is just do this staircase, okay? So then what you want to do is just draw the straight line like this, okay? And there we have it, okay? So all you have to remember is just draw the graph, add a scale, and then label the x axis, label the y axis, and then look at the equation, try to figure out what's the gradient, what's the coordinates of the point, the line cuts the y axis, and then do the staircase method to work it out, okay? Alright, so let's have a go at the next exam question then. So this question is saying that the diagram shows a straight line joining points A and point B. So we have point A here and then point B here, okay? And we are asked to find the equation of the line AB, and we have to give the equation in its simplest form. Okay, so this question and the next question I'm going to do, this is one of the more common types of question. This is where we get a diagram and we can't tell what the y-intercept is because, you know, there's no scale, okay? So in this case, what you have to do is use this new type of equation, okay? So what this equation is y minus b is equal to m x minus a, okay? So this is the equation of a straight line, okay? This is just written in a different format, okay? So what we still have is m, which is the gradient, but we have these new letters a and b. Now a and b are just the x and y coordinates of a point, okay? So I'll show you how to use this formula in this equation, in this question, but essentially what you need to remember is we use this equation whenever we don't know what the y coordinates are, okay? So let's have a go at this question then. So what we have here is we have a line on a graph and we're given 2 points. Anytime you have that scenario when you know 2 points on a line, well, that means you can immediately find the gradient, okay? So what is the formula to work out the gradient is m is equal to y2 minus y1 is equal to x2 minus x1. Okay, so what we need to know is what to substitute into this formula. Okay, so let's write point A is minus 1, 6, and then B is 3 minus 2. Okay, so what I recommend you always do is write the coordinates down and then label it. So this will be x1, this will be y1, and this will be x2, and this will be y2, okay? So all we have to do now is just substitute these values into this formula to calculate the gradient of that line, okay? So what do we have? So y2 is minus 2, and then y1 is 6, okay? Now x2 is 3, and then x1 is minus 1, so it'll be minus 1. So just put the minus 1 in brackets so you don't get confused with the double negatives, okay? So let's work it out. So minus 2 minus 6, so that will be a minus 8. Then 3 minus 1, that will be 3 plus 1, that will be 4. Okay, so what does that give us? So it will give us a gradient of m is equal to minus 2, okay, as our answer. Okay, so what's that saying? So if we do m is equal to v over h, vertical over horizontal, what we're saying is that if that equals minus 2, which is the same way as writing minus 2 over 1 as a top heavy fraction, we're going to go across 1 unit, then we're going to go down 2 units, okay? So we know it's a negative gradient, so we're going to go, the line is going to slope down the way, which makes sense if we look at the diagram here. The line is sloping down the way. So we've calculated the gradient correctly. Okay, so now the next task is to get the equation of the straight line, we need to know the y-intercept, okay? So this is where we use this equation here, okay? So y minus b is equal to mx minus a, okay? So we know the gradient, we know m, okay? So what's a and b? Well, a and b is the idea, you can literally just substitute any point you know on this straight line. So we have 2 points we can choose from. So I'm just going to choose point A, minus 1, 6, okay? So I'll write minus 1, 6, and this is point A, and I'll label it A and B. So I know which to what to substitute in. Okay, so let's do that. So it'll be y minus b is 6, so y minus 6 is equal to, so m is the gradient of minus 2 that we calculated. Then it'll be x, so minus 1, okay? Now let's keep going, so we have y minus 6 is equal to minus 2, and that'll be x plus 1, okay? Let's keep going, so y minus 6 is equal to, so let's multiply out these brackets, so it'll be minus 2x minus 2, okay? Now let's bring the minus 6 to the right hand side, so we get the form that we're used to, y is equal to mx plus c, okay? We have the y by itself on the left hand side, so it'll be y is equal to minus 2x, so it'll be minus 2 plus 6, which will be plus 4, okay? So that is our final answer, okay? So that's the form that we're used to. We have the y by itself on the left-hand side. So when you look at this equation, we can say that m is equal to minus 2. That's the gradient, and then c is equal to 4, okay? So we know that the coordinates at the point where the line cuts the y-axis is 0, 4. Okay, doc? So this is the case where you use this equation here. Y minus b is equal to m bracket x minus a, where you don't know what the y-intercept is, okay? And finally, this is the most complex type of question you could get regarding the equation of a straight line, okay? So this question is saying that the fuel consumption for a group of cars is recorded. The scatter graph shows a relationship between the fuel consumption, which is denoted by F, and that's measured in kilometers per litre, and then the engine size, which is denoted by the letter E, and that's measured in litres, okay? And then we have a line of best fit is drawn, okay? So essentially a scatter graph is just a load of data points, and what you do is you draw a line of best fit, okay? But if you ignore the fact that it's a scatter graph, all we've been given is a straight line graph, okay? And instead of x and y, so we have E on the horizontal axis, then we have F on the vertical axis. So this question is a bit more complex because we're normally used to dealing with x and y. So what it's trying to get us to be aware of is the letter by itself on the left hand side is going to be the vertical axis, and then the letter behind the gradient, well, that's going to be the horizontal axis, okay? So we're dealing with E and F, okay? And what we simply have to do is find the equation of the line of best fit in terms of F and E, and we have to give the equation in its simplest form. Okay, so what is the equation of a straight line? Well, it's y is equal to mx plus c, okay? So in order to find the equation of a straight line, we need to know the gradient, okay? We need to know the gradient, and we need to know the y-intercept, okay? So when you look at this diagram, okay, ignore the fact it's a scatter graph. What we have here is just a straight line graph, okay? The line doesn't actually go through the y-axis, it's cut off, okay? So we don't know what point it goes through the y-axis. So when that's shown, what we imply is that we need to use y minus b is equal to m bracket x minus a. Okay, we need to use this form of the equation now. Okay, so let's focus on the gradient. So in order to work out the gradient, we need to know 2 points on that line, okay? So let's look at the graph and identify 2 points on the line ourselves. What you want to look for is 2 nice points, okay? So I've identified this point here, okay? It's on the line itself, and it's at the corner of a box. So this point will be 3.5 and 8, okay? Then let's find another point. I'm going to choose this one here. That's a nice point. So this will be 1.5, 14. Okay, so I've identified 2 points. Now that I've identified 2 points, I can actually work out the gradient, okay? So m is equal to y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. Now this will write the 2 points that we found. It will be 3.58 and then 1.514. Okay, so let's label it. So it'll be x1, y1, and then x2 and y2. Okay, so now we know what to substitute into this formula. Okay, so let's do that. So y2 is 14, y1 is 8, then x2 is 1.5, and x1 is 3.5. Okay, so let's work this out. So 14 take away 8, well that will be 6. Okay, then 1.5 take away 3.5, well that will be minus 2. Okay, so that gives us a gradient of m is equal to minus 3. Okay, so we've worked out the gradient, we worked out what m is. Okay, so now we need to find out what the y-intercept is. Okay, so what is the y-intercept? Well, whenever you don't know the y-intercept, because if you look at the diagram, it's cut off so you can't see what it is. So then, in that case, we need to use this equation. So always remember that. So it'll be y minus b is equal to m bracket x minus a. Okay, so what is b and a? Well, you just simply pick any point that you know on this straight line and then substitute that in. So I'm just going to pick the point 3.58. Okay, I'm just going to pick that randomly. You can pick any point and I'm going to label that a and b. So let's substitute that in. So be y minus 8 is equal to, so what's m? Well, we've calculated that as minus 3. We've got a negative gradient, so the line should be sloping down the way, which we've calculated to be correct given the diagram. Okay, so what's a? X minus 3.5. Okay, so let's multiply out this bracket. So it'll be minus 3x, then minus 3 times minus 3.5, well that will be positive 10.5. Okay, so let's bring the minus 8 to the right hand side to get the form that we're used to, the y by itself on the left hand side. So it'll be minus 3x, so plus 10.5 plus 8, well that will be plus 18.5. Okay, so that's us done. We've calculated the equation of the straight line. But if you look at this question carefully, it will say find the equation of the line of best fit in terms of f and e. Okay, so we normally deal with y and x, don't we? So we need to change it into f and e. So what is the variable on the y-axis? Well, it's f. Okay, so we write f here. Then what's the variable on the horizontal axis? Well, it's e. Okay, so it'll be minus 3e plus 18.5 as the final answer for part A. Alright, so let's move on to question B then. Okay, so this question is saying that Amar's car has an engine size of 1.1 litres and we have to use our equation from part A to estimate how many kilometres per litre he should expect. Okay, so what this question is, this is a typical add-on question. So after you figure out the equation of a straight line, you can then figure out any other point on that line if you know one of the variables. Okay, so in this case we know one of the variables. Okay, so we have the engine size of 1.1 litres. Okay, now what letter is engine size? So if you look at the question here, so engine size is denoted by E. Okay, so we know E. Okay, so we know that E is equal to 1.1 litres. Okay, and then we have to estimate how many kilometres per litre he should expect. Well, which letter denotes kilometres per litre? Well, if you look at the question, it's the fuel consumption here. So the fuel consumption, which is denoted by F. Okay, so we know E is equal to 1.1 litres. And then what's F? Okay, so that's a typical question. If you know one of the variables, you need to calculate the other, and it's measured in kilometres per litre. Okay, so how do you figure that out? All you have to do is use the equation we just figured out. So in this case, it's F is equal to minus 3E plus 18.5. Okay, so let's substitute what we know. We know what E is. So E is minus 3 times 1.1 plus 18.5. Okay, so that gives us F is equal to minus 3.3 plus 18.5. And then what does that give us? So F is equal to minus 3.3 plus 18.5 is equal to 15.2. And then you need to be careful with the units. So F is the fuel consumption, and that's kilometres per litre. Okay, So there we have it, that's our final answer. So just remember, once you figure out the equation of a straight line, you can figure out any other point on that line if you know one of the variables, okay? So in this case, we knew what the engine size was, and that means we can figure out what the fuel consumption was. So we knew what x was, we substitute x into this equation to figure out y, okay? So that's the whole idea of it. Okay everyone, so that's absolutely everything you need to know about the straight line equation topic, with the different types of questions you could be asked in the exam. I hope this video has helped you, and if it has, please do hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel. And I'll see you in my next video where I'll look at quadratic functions, so I'll see you guys then.